Story 1. My partner threw an M&M candy into my mouth from across the room. I did not move to catch it, he just made a perfect throw. I was honestly expecting it to hit my face or fall on the floor, but it went right into my mouth without choking me. We were having a house party with a full house, and only one other person saw it. Story 2. Not me, but apparently Bill Murray is known for stealing fries or other small pieces of food off of people's plates and saying, "No one will believe you," as he walks away. Story 3. We were very high on edibles and saw a man walking a goat on a rope leash, barefoot and holding a broom. No one believed us until our friend also mentioned she had seen him once, but she is a frequent user of cannabis, so she was also doubted. Story 4. I had a video interview scheduled with the owner of a company. Mid-interview, his screen suddenly became blurry, and I informed him of this. He insisted everything was fine on his end and continued asking me questions. He then accidentally moved or dropped his phone, and I saw that he had his pants down and was exposing himself. He was engaging in inappropriate behavior while interviewing me. Story 5. I have been shown a room filled with child mummies and bones in Peru by a mayor after the town children performed a dance to welcome us. Story 6. I was 22 and home when a man broke into our house. He saw me and bolted, which gave me the courage to scream, "Get out of my house!" Then I called emergency services. I gave the address, a description of the man, and the direction he was heading when he ran. A police officer arrived shortly thereafter, saying they thought they had the man and needed me to identify him. I got into the back of the police car, and the officer drove to a parking lot across the street from where her partner was holding the man. I confirmed it was him, and the officer radioed her partner the positive identification. The man jerked free and ran. The partner chased after him, and my officer said, "Shit," then put the car into gear and sped off. I was taken along for the ride as they pursued the man down the highway and into residential areas. Eventually, he hid in an overgrown lot, and my officer stopped on the curb. Within minutes, a dozen other police vehicles arrived, a canine unit, and I heard helicopters circling. About 10 minutes passed, and I heard someone say, "We probably should take the victim home." Later, I went to the station to give a statement and ran into my assistant manager, who was there to pay a ticket. The reason they caught the man so quickly was because the officers were at a sandwich shop when the call came in to be on the lookout for a man matching that description. They looked out the window and saw the man jog into the parking lot, exhausted and covered in sweat, like he had just sprinted a mile. I later found out the man had broken into another house before mine, and the homeowner was there too. Unluckiest burglar ever. Story 7. I was sitting outside very early one morning with a mug of fresh coffee. A hummingbird flew up and, just for a moment, landed on the rim. A few seconds later, it took off. So cool. Story 8. My dad used to canoe with us kids into remote lakes in northern Quebec. One day we were fishing, and I hooked a large walleye. I fought with it for a while, then the line just sort of dragged. I figured it got snagged on something and the fish broke the line, so I steadily pulled it up, and eventually it turned out it was wrapped around a nylon rope. The end of the rope had a piece of rusty wire attached. The other end of the rope was attached to something heavy. I was worried it was a body, so we pulled it up and it was a large white bucket. Inside the bucket were many bottles of beer. What happened, it appears, was this. Some previous visitor to this lake had submerged their beer deep in the lake to cool it. They had attached the line to a floating buoy, but the attachment had broken off and so they lost their beer. We were just kids, and my dad did not drink, so we just took pictures and left the beer on shore for someone else to find. Also, who knows how long the beer had been down there. It does sound like a fabricated fishing story, how I went fishing and a fish got away but left some beer behind. Only it actually happened. Story 9. Met an artist in a nightclub after a gig in Newcastle, where they were the support act and had only 4 songs released. 2 years later, they achieved their country's best Eurovision result in 25 years. Story 10. I have a good one. I worked as a chauffeur for 6 years, and I had to pick up a Native American man who runs casinos. He vacationed in Florida and wanted to drive all the way back to his reservation in Canada near the Alaskan border, way up north. He wanted to sightsee. The last 150 miles of the journey were on a gravel road with no civilization between the last town and the reservation. I loaded up with gas and all necessary supplies and headed out. I got about halfway through the journey when a tree limb fell and slammed right through the front radiator of the vehicle, making it inoperable. We had zero signal out there. The way back was a series of hills, but the rest of the way to the reservation was supposed to be flatter. Since we were closer to the reservation, I decided to walk, figuring it would take me a day or two to get there. Toward the evening of the first day, a moose chased me off the road into the woods, and I got lost. I thought I was going to get lost in the Canadian wilderness and die or something. I settled in for the night in my hammock and fell asleep. At about 1 a.m., I heard a voice saying hello, hello several times, which woke me up in absolute terror. It turned out to be 3 Native American hunters. Since it was spring, it was kind of odd, but they helped me and walked me through the woods to the reservation. When I got to the reservation, there was a Royal Canadian Mounted Police officer and the chief. I got into trouble for wandering off the path and other things. The officer wanted me to leave, but the chief said I could stay the night. When the chief asked how I made it through the woods and I told him about the 3 Native American individuals who helped me, he said no one was hunting at that time of year and there was no one matching the description of the 3 men. That really creeped me out and sent chills down my spine. The chief said maybe they were spirits or something. This is a very condensed version of the story. Story 11. My dad took my brother and me crabbing at a pier. My dad and brother used nets, and Dad gave me an old pantyhose to dangle in the water with a fishbone inside. I wanted to move to another area, but when I stood up, I couldn't lift the sock. I was so excited I told my dad I had caught a big crab, and Dad said it was probably just snagged on something. I insisted I had caught a really big, heavy crab because I couldn't move it. Finally, Dad came over, took the top of the hose from me and said, "Wow, it really is stuck on something." He yanked with all his might, and I don't know who was more surprised, us or the fully grown sea turtle that had just been rudely yanked out of the water. Years later, I was telling family the story of going crabbing with pantyhose, and my dad looked at me and said, "That's not how you catch crab. I just didn't want you to feel left out, so I gave you something to hold." That explains his initial insistence that there was no way I actually caught anything. Story 12. I saw someone dressed as a wizard carrying a staff walking through a blizzard. I kept staring and then they vanished. Story 13. I was a bridesmaid in a wedding where the best man died twice during the ceremony and was revived by a medical doctor and a dentist who were also in the wedding party. He was taken by paramedics, and the ceremony continued without him. The marriage lasted 3.5 years. The best man lasted longer. Story 14. Obligatory. Not my story, but whenever questions like this come up, I love to share this post from the Ask United Kingdom subreddit. Story 15. I once hand-fed raisins to an adolescent bear. I was visiting someone whose backyard was right against a hillside that was part of state forest land. A young bear came into the yard. We called animal control, and they suggested putting out food to keep the bear from leaving until they could come get it. One thing led to another, and there I was with my friend from Mongolia, watching this bear lick raspberry jam from a plate. We threw some raisins onto the patio. The bear approached. We held raisins in our open palms. The bear crept closer, licked up the raisins, and backed away. Animal control came by not long after that, tranquilized the bear, and took it away, presumably to relocate it. Yes, this was absolutely a stupid thing to do for multiple reasons. Story 16. When I was 6, I had what might be a ghostly experience. One day, I was in the bathroom near the sink, and the toilet flushed by itself. I lived in that flat for 13 years, and that was the only time it ever happened. The worst part is that I spent the next 6 months spending as little time as possible in the bathroom out of fear it would happen again. Story 17. I connected with an adult film performer on Facebook. She sent the request, and she did not ask for money or my credit card information. I did not know who she was when the friend request appeared because she was not using her professional name. Her name is Kayla Synz. Story 18. I used to throw chocolate fountain parties on April 20th. One year, I had 27 people in my two-bedroom apartment, with my bedroom off limits. My girlfriend asked my best friend to heat up the kettle on the stove so she could make more tea. He unknowingly turned on the wrong burner. The burner he turned on had a large blue Pyrex bowl we had used to pour chocolate into the fountain. Some time later, there was a loud sound that was a mix between a pop and shatter. We all ran into the kitchen. The whole area was covered in various sized shards of blue glass. Some of it, not a lot, was stuck in the wall. No doubt if someone had been there, they would have been badly hurt. But with that many people in such a small space, somehow nobody was in the kitchen. Story 19. It turned out my roommate's family was involved with a cartel and ended up with a bunch of burlap sacks full of cocaine in my garage. Each sack had 8 to 10 bricks, and each brick supposedly weighed 3 kilograms. There were 3 walls besides the garage door with burlap sacks stacked 2 to 3 deep. If I were to guess, there were probably 20 burlap sacks per wall, so approximately 60 burlap sacks in total. I did not stick around to count. It was the craziest, most unbelievable week of my life. Story 20. I sold cannabis for a while. I went from selling 1 ounce to 10 kilograms per week. The most I ever made was 27,000 pounds in a day. The police have seized more than 80,000 pounds from me. Story 21. My childhood friend was the son of a cemetery keeper. Their family lived on the grounds of the cemetery. One day, I walked over to his house to see if he could hang out with me. His dad had just finished putting a casket into the ground. After the deceased family left, my friend's dad said he and I could hang out after we shoveled the dirt back into the hole. So yes, we buried someone that day. I was 12 years old. Story 22. Driving through the city, there is a pedestrian fishing off the side of a bridge. It is odd since it is a city, but the unbelievable part is that he was not using a fishing pole. He was shooting a crossbow into the river. Story 23. I once had a premonition dream about Peter Cetera dying. I was not far off. The next day, I found there had been a hoax about him dying. My sister once had a premonition about a plane crashing. The next day, it did. It was hard trying to explain to my young sister that it was not her fault. Story 24. I was driving home one night and saw an ostrich and a monkey run across the road in front of me. I live in a very rural area outside of Nashville, so I do not know where they came from unless they escaped from the zoo. Nobody believes me. Story 25. My house was struck by ball lightning. This is an extremely rare event, with fewer than 100 documented incidents in recent history. Story 26. This happened in the late 2000s. It was around 3 a.m., and I was smoking below my block when I saw a black cat staring intently at me. After a few seconds of staring, the cat suddenly spoke to me in a deep male voice. "Can I have a cigarette too?" I slowly left my half-finished cigarette next to the cat and ran away. Story 27. When I was about 9 or 10 years old, I somehow took Tobuscus's username, which was Nuggetser, on a website called iSketch. I do not remember how I did it. I mean, there is no way I actually guessed his password, right? I joined some random room and saw somebody with the name, not Tobuscus. I thought, oh, they must be a Tobuscus fan. It turned out it was actually Tobuscus, and little 10-year-old me cemented myself in one of his videos forever as the one who stole his online identity. Luckily, my friends believe me. I really wish I had recorded or taken a picture of it. Story 28. Between the ages of 18 and 22, I, a male, was involved in multiple situationships with women, 3 of whom initiated the relationships. I nearly entered into a full relationship with one of them, but I wanted her to succeed in life, so I let her go. I asked my mother open-ended questions about how to recognize when a woman is attracted to a man. The woman I let go spoke Punjabi in a similar way to my parents and would have been warmly welcomed into my family. Story 29. Driving down a back road with my windows down, a bird flew through the van. My son was riding with me. Otherwise, there were no witnesses. Story 30. When I was 20, a friend and I were driving across the country in the middle of nowhere in Wyoming. We saw a beat-up old pickup truck in the distance and closed in on it over several miles. As we got closer, we could see the truck had a drug abuse resistance education to think for yourself bumper sticker, and sure enough, as we approached, we could tell on sight the guy driving it was a total stoner. I was driving, so as we passed him, my friend made eye contact with the guy, pulled out a joint, lit it, took a hit, and rolled down his window. The guy rolled down his window, and my friend handed him the lit joint at 75 miles per hour. The guy said, "Wow, thanks." My friend rolled up his window, I floored it, and before long, he was out of view behind us. This was the middle of nowhere in rural Wyoming. There was no other traffic in sight the whole time, so no one else could have seen this. Somewhere out there is a guy telling this story from the other perspective, and no one believes him. Story 31. A mysterious company was searching for volunteers to find a type of crystal. To avoid my life sentence in prison, I accepted. There were giant anglers and radioactive bull sharks down there, and some fish-human hybrids that were oddly attractive. There was also a creature that did not even look like a fish, with many eyes, trying to get into the locker where I was hiding. Additionally, there were giant whale-like creatures that did not resemble whales. They had 4 large spotlights I had to avoid. Eventually, I retrieved the crystal for Mr. Shade. They brought me home, pardoned me for my crimes, gave me a large sum of money, and warned me not to tell anyone what I saw, as no one would believe me. Safe to say, I was under a lot of pressure the entire time. Story 32. A random girl came knocking at my hotel room door at 2 a.m., looking for her friend. She didn't believe me, so she asked to come in. She had a purse and was wearing a one-piece outfit. After she searched the room, she asked to borrow my phone. She let me hold her closely while she made her calls. She left, and that was that. Story 33. I was born to be rejected by society because of things that are out of my control. I feel like a modern-day dark Jesus Christ. Story 34. I came to work and found 3 nuclear missiles outside the maintenance shop. On my way to work, Hannibal and his elephants were crossing the Blue Ridge Mountains. I came to work, and there were 2 elephants in the back lot. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.